الشيطان الرجيم بفضل بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذ قال موسى لفتاه لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا فلما بلغ مجمع بينهما نسيا حوتهما فاتخذ سبيله في البحر سربا. This portion of the Quran, of the Surah, we are going to discuss about the teachings and the learnings of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr. Who is Al-Khidr? There are differences of opinion whether he is a prophet or he is just a pious man. Different versions of explanation are there. Besides that, here Musa alayhi salam is now setting out a journey to meet this person Al-Khidr. And Musa alayhi salam is telling to his servant boy who is associating with him on his travel that he says that not I am going to cease until I reach the junction of the two seas, or I continue it for a very long time. The discussion, the necessity of Musa alayhi salam to do this travel is being highlighted in the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that it so happened that Musa alayhi salam once happened to have to deliver a lecture before children of Bani Israel. And one of the people asked him a question, as the norm of the day, that prophets were being posted with questions. The question that they asked is, who is the most learned among the people? The natural reply is the prophet would be the most learned person among any community. So having that in his mind, Musa alayhi salam replied that I am the most learned. But though the answer is absolutely correct, but he has told this before revelation has come to him. So Allah has rebuked him and said that because he did not refer to the knowledge of Allah, he was not waiting the revelation, but before that itself he said that he is the knowledgeable. So now Allah wants to give him a learning and to show him a most knowledgeable person of his time, and to make him to visit a servant of Allah. That's what Allah introduces. Allah doesn't say that he's a prophet. Allah says that he is the best servant of mine. So you have to meet him in a place where the junction of two seas meet. And Mufassirins have difference of opinion on which this place refers to. Musa alayhi salam asked, how can I meet him? So the test for him is, Allah said, take a fish, that too a cooked fish. To take a fish, put it in a vessel, and then start traveling. When you lose the fish, then you will find him. So that is a place where he was living in. So this is the address that Allah wants to tell him. So Musa alayhi salam, as usual, took a vessel and then set along, and the boy servant, he took a boy servant, and Yusha bin Nun, and a historian says that this is the person who has, after Musa alayhi salam, he become the leader of children of Bani Israel, children of Israel. So, and then both were setting out, and both of them lay down, and then what happened, let's understand now. So then when they both reached the junction, as told by Allah, between them, they forgot about their fish. The fish, which was cooked inside the vessel, took its way and into the sea, slipping away. And now, because they were traveling for a very long time, Musa alayhi salam fell asleep, and this servant was taking care of the luggages. And this person has seen that a fish has jumped from his vessel and then got into the way. He was observing that, but he couldn't disclose it. He didn't disclose it to Musa alayhi salam because Musa alayhi salam was sleeping. And Allah said they have forgotten. I mean, this person has forgotten to inform this information to Musa alayhi salam. So then they continued their journey. Then when they had passed beyond, he said to his boy, I mean Musa alayhi salam said to his servant, bring us our morning meal. Certainly we have suffered in our journey of a great fatigue. We have become very tired. So bring us the meal for us to consume. And now he reminds back and he said, did you see when we are tired, retiring towards a rock, when we are taking a nap near a rock? Verily, I have forgotten to mention about the fish to you, and not made me to forget except the shaitan. So this is something that we always should remember. And forgetting matter comes, this is to associate with shaitan. Reminding, it is to associate with Allah. And that's why Quran always reminds, the man generally forgets. And the shaitan is the one who tempts man to forget things. And made me to forget it except shaitan, that I should mention it to you. Then they had no choice except to retrace their path. And it took its way into the sea amazingly. Amazingly, because it was a cooked fish that caught it live and then turned back, and it was making its way, making like a tunnel, Mufassirin says, because that is a junction in which the cold water and the hot water was sinking, as said by the Mufassirins, in the warm water, we can say. And now he said, that is the place that I was looking for, sir. And that is the place that we were supposed to meet that person, Al-Khidr. So that is where we were seeking. So they returned on their footprints, retracing the path. Then they found a servant from our servants, which means ibadina among slaves, which means Allah has chosen the slave. Allah calls him as a slave, a very pious person. Here, please understand, Musa alayhi salam is the prophet of his time, but Allah is testing him by having Khidr alayhi salam to teach him some of the most unknown things, and we know that Musa alayhi salam is little hasty in things. So now Allah wants, because that's why we find Musa alayhi salam wants to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is also with hastiness, and Allah wants to teach him some subjects about the patience. So here is the person who is going to teach him lesson on patience, and that do not blackboard teaching, but it's an practical teaching that he wants to give. Whom we had given from near us, mercy from near us, and we have taught him. Allah is now giving intro about this Khidr alayhi salam, Al-Khidr, that we have taught him from nearest knowledge. Now Musa alayhi salam said to him, Musa alayhi salam, may I follow you on that you teach me what you have been taught of right guidance? Can you do, sir? Because Musa alayhi salam is now asking request to become a student of him. Can you please teach me something which Allah has taught you on a right guidance? Khidr alayhi salam, who was basically, he is a traveler and he moves around to a lot of places. He said, I can't, it is very difficult for you. Looking at the character and the words that Musa alayhi salam speaks, he could able to recognize that he recognized some signs, and he said, verily you will not be in a position to remain with me patient. I may be going to different places and doing different odd things. It may not be possible for you to remain patient with me. Now, Musa alayhi salam replies, how come? How can you have patience for what not you encompass with it of knowledge? Because I am going to do something which Allah is commanding me to do, but you may not be having knowledge of it, then how you will have patience? Musa alayhi salam replies and tried to convince Al-Khidr and says, he said, you will find me if wishes Allah as a patient one, and not I will disobey your order. These are the two things that Musa alayhi salam warranties. And any student should have this kind of mentality to, to learn things from his teacher. One is to remain patient. Whatever the task that has been given has to be endured upon, and then should be done with absolute patience and steadfastness. And second, you should not disobey the commandment. Then he said, okay, you follow me, but here Khidr who wants to put a test and says that you can follow me, but with a condition. But you should not ask me of anything until I present it. If I do something, you should not ask me any question until I mention it to you, until I remember it to you, until I mention it to you, until I explain it to you. You are not supposed to ask any questions about things that I am going to do. This is because Musa alayhi salam was coming from a community where they kept asking or blasting him with questions. So now he keeps answering, just like today's press reporters who keeps asking hundreds of questions and irrelevant questions, and just answering them will not have any faida, any benefit. Same way you say, you are not supposed to ask me any question until I reveal it to you. This is the condition that Khidr who wants to put to Musa alayhi salam. So they were agreed upon. So now the first journey starts with them. Now, so they both set out until when they embarked on a ship. Then, as soon as he embarked on a ship, he made a hole in it. Khidr who made a hole inside a ship. What would happen? I want you to give a guess on a chat. What would happen if somebody puts a hole on a ship? Can give it a guess on a chat. And he said, Musa alayhi salam, as soon as he see, yeah, ship sinks. And that too, Musa alayhi salam is a person who is known for anger. And now he becomes tempted to anger. He said, he asked this question, have you made a hole on it to drown its people? What thing that you are doing now? Certainly you have done a thing grave. This is a question, and he is raising this question with him. Now Khidr calmly replies, did I not tell you that you will never be able to remain with me patient? This is not that I'm doing it on my own. It's because Allah has tempted and Allah has advised me to do. I'm just doing. So that's what he is trying to reply. Do not blame me for what I have forgotten. Musa alayhi salam regrets the mistake of his and says, I have violated the condition with which I have been with you. So please do not blame me for what I have forgotten. And do not be hard upon me in my affair in a difficult way. Don't take any action against me. Okay. Then they both set out until when they met a boy, a young boy who was playing with other kids. Khidr who has killed him, has killed a child. This is much more crime than what he has done the earlier. Now Musa alayhi salam becomes much angry, and then he is asking, have you killed a soul which is pure, or other than a soul, which means other than taking a legal retribution? Certainly you have done an evil thing, nukra, evil thing. Then we will continue this in Juz 16. Again, Khidr instead of answering his question, he said, did not I say to you that you will never be able to remain patient with me? This is the second incident that has happened. Then again Musa alayhi salam regulates and says, if I ask you about anything after this, then let's stop our association. Then do not keep me as your companion. Verily you have reached from me an excuse. Then the third incident happens. The both of them have set out until they came to a people of a town. They go to a new city, And as usual, those were the times that doesn't have any hotels like luxurious hotels as we have. The travelers were taken care by the people of the city. That's why Prophet ﷺ, lot of hadiths and even in the Quran, that you have a portion of a wealth to be associated, to be dedicated for the travelers. Here, these were the travelers. Khidr and Musa ﷺ were the travelers, and the people of the city are responsible to feed the guests as a guest. So they asked for food from its people, but none in the city have accepted to give food or share their food with them, but they refused to offer them hospitality. So now, then they found in it a wall. So this was happening. They were not treated as a guest, but on a contrary to this, then they found in it inside a city a wall that wanted to collapse. It was about to fall down. The wall that was about to fall down. Khidr who made an effort to set it right. Now, because though the people have not dealt with them correctly, he was behaving very well, and he was taking the social affair and then setting it right. He said, Musa alayhi salam said, he said, if you wish, surely you could have taken for it a payment. At least he is not asking anything more. You have done a task now. You have completed a construction work for them. Why can't you get yourself paid? Take yourself a payment. Then this comes a conclusion of things between the Khidr and Musa alayhi salam, and said, this is the parting between me and between you. I want you to give a guess on 3 incidences that has happened now, and we have the lessons from it. Just consolidate that on a chat. So, this is a parting between me and you, and I will inform you of the interpretation of what not you were able on it a patient. Okay, coming back to the first point. First point is distorting a ship. So this is like, if I have to give an analogy, this is like a loss in our property. Sometimes we get a loss which we could not comprehend or which we could not accept. Sometimes like test us with that. Similarly like this. Here he says, as far as the ship, this ship was belonging to a poor people who are working in the sea. So I intended that I caused to defect in it. I caused to defect in it, so that, and there was after them a king. At a later point in time, there was a king who is very rigorous and wicked king, who used to seize every ship by force. Which means if they had a good ship, he would seize it and he would take it for government and he will leave them hanging. Now I have distorted it, so it will look faulty for the king and he will not seize it. So this is a smaller loss, and compared to the bigger loss that is going to come, sometimes it happens like that. We get a smaller loss. Maybe that it has prevented us from getting a bigger loss. It was this time. So that is the master plan that Allah could have happened. Allah could have had for us, which we could not comprehend. Second, with regard to the boy, as far as his parents were concerned, they are sincere believers. They were sincere believers, but they feared that he would, as far as the boy, I think there is some mistake. Yeah. And we feared that he would be overburdened them by transgression and disbelief. This boy, when he grows up, he will become a strong disbeliever, and he will overburden them and torture them to disbelief. In order to save their iman, Allah has decided to take the life of this boy. And sometimes we get lost, we will lose the life of our fellow people. And this is also a test from Allah, that we may not know the knowledge with which Allah does it. It's for us to remain patient. This is first is the loss in the property, and second is the loss of life of individuals. And third, with regard to the setting right of the wall, so we intend that Allah wants to take this child and give them another better child than them. So if some loss of life happen in a family, it means that Allah wants to remove them and give them something better than this. So we intend that would change for them their Lord better than him, who is pure and nearer in affection. And the last one, with regard to the wall that he has set it right, he said it was belonging to two orphan boys. They were young now, Gulamaini Yatimain in Medina, in the town. And below the wall was underneath it a treasure. Mufassirin says this is a treasure for which zakat was already paid. So it becomes obligatory for Allah to safeguard this wealth for them. And was their father. Their father was very righteous person. So Allah intended to reach out this wealth to that orphan boys when they really grow up. So Allah, your Lord, that they would reach their maturity and then they want to bring forth their treasure as a mercy. So in order to safeguard the treasure, I was setting up things, setting up the wall. Sometimes that if we are really righteous, our progeny, our people, our lineage, our children will get the benefit of that even after we die. It's something that we learned from the third incident, and not I did it on my accord. And further, killing a soul, distorting the shape on a normal person, you and I could not do it. It is a sin. But because Allah has given a special permission for this person, that's what he is telling. This is not something that I am doing it on my own, but it is something that Allah has instructed me to do, so that I am doing. So that is the interpretation of what not you were able on it to remain patient. So this is what is the crux of that. I didn't do anything on my own, but it's from Allah. And sometime Allah tests us like all the three things, and we were supposed to remain patient and wait for Allah's results to see. And that's what here Allah is trying to convince us and teach us through these incidents. With that, we can wind up for the day, inshallah. We will be having recorded sessions that is played for the next 2 days, because I am